A family man. He's a great Texan. He's a fighting Texas Aggie, and that's hard coming from a Horn Frog. Okay? But he's my buddy. He's your buddy.
This is Congressman Williams.
I hope great things are ahead for him, as all of you do. Would you please stand and honor our former Texas governor who made Texas great and kept Texas great, the Honorable Rick Perry.
My life's, I spent most of my 30 years in the political world trying to make sure I didn't have to follow somebody like Roger Williams. Mr. Secretary, Congressman, great and dear friend, TCU Horn Frog extraordinaire, thank you for all you've done for our state. You're a great American. As I look across this crowd and I think about how many of you held your hand up at certain times over that period of time that I had the great privilege to serve you in Austin, Texas, and said, "Here am I, send me." How many of you in this audience served the state as an appointee to the state of Texas during that period of time? Just hold your hand up. Yeah, there are a lot of you. Thank you for that. Another congressman, secretary of states in here, judges, people who served on the boards of regents of our great university system, just one after another, people who love their state. And as Roger was reflecting about who we are and a time such as this, and why it's so important for us to be here at this national convention and to be wearing our red, white, and blue, because that is the color of the future. The world needs an America that is strong, that is stable, that is powerful, and that's exactly what we're going to give it. The world can take a step back. The world can take a deep breath, if you will, because the America that freed more people than any other country in the world is on the verge of being great again. We're on the verge of being that place where a tyrant or a terrorist group comes and attacks an ally. They know that very soon the wrath of Almighty God will come down upon their heads, and America will make a difference in their life, and America will be there to defend them and the values. That's what this election is really all about. There's some seriousness about what we're all about here today. Yeah, we're going to have a good time. I'm pretty sure if I have yet to meet the state that had a better time at a national convention than the state of Texas. And nobody ever gets confused about who we are. Last night I was having dinner with a fellow and he said, it's kind of one of those things you don't ever ask an individual if they're from Texas. Because if they're from Texas, they'll have already told you. And if they're not, you don't want to embarrass them. Nobody has to ask where the Texas delegation is at the Republican National Convention. It's kind of like the reason motorcycles are loud. That's for the benefit of those that don't see them. And that's kind of the way we are. And I hope people take it in the right way. That we're that way because we believe in this country. We're that way because we understand the importance that the values and the philosophy that has been projected in the state of Texas. From time to time, people may think that we are braggadocious. And that's okay. But my dad always told me, he said, son, if you can do it, it ain't bragging. And that's the story about Texas that we're trying to share with the rest of the country, and I hope we do it in a way that they realize we're doing it to make this country stronger. The policies that were put into place in our state over the course of the last decade plus have been because we know they work. There were people that came up and said time after time, if you pass that tort reform, now generally these were personal injury trial lawyers that said this, but they said if you pass that tort reform back in 2003, the state will be affected in a way that you can't imagine. There aren't going to be any doctors. People won't be able to have health care. And you all know the truth, and America knows the truth, and the world knows the truth now. Is that all across our great state, people have access to health care that didn't have it before. You know, the left wants to go on and on about, oh, you don't have enough people under insurance. I've never seen insurance be the answer to people's health care. What's the answers to health care is to people to have access to good quality health care. And we do that day in and day out in our state. And we did it because of Republican leadership, Roger, that stood up and faded the heat and did what was right. That's what leadership is really all about. Standing up and doing what's right even when sometimes it may not be popular. Nobody got confused back in the late 2000s when Texas led the nation in job creation. Because we put tax policy and regulatory policy and legal policies and public school policies into place. There was one point in time when Texas created more jobs than the rest of the country combined. I never did get the call from President Obama to thank me for that one. He's always talking about it. He's talking about, you know, how well the economy's doing. It's kind of, yeah, Texas. But the key is we do these things and we do them to give a reflection for other states. We do it because we're competitive. And being competitive is a good thing. You know, I don't know how, this idea that somehow or another everybody's the same. And that we don't have to be competitors out there. You know, can't we just all, you know, sing Kumbaya and it's all good? And the fact of the matter is, competition is what makes you stronger. That may make you uncomfortable. And I'm pretty sure any of you that have been involved in trying to get yourself back in shape realize that there's a little discomfort that can go along with that from time to time. But I want states to compete against each other. I want our federal government. Roger, one of the things that I talked to Donald Trump about was making sure that sitting in the White House in January of 2015 as an individual and a team that totally understands the concept of the 10th Amendment, why our founding fathers put that in place, why it became part of that Bill of Rights. Because they were amazingly visionary. That document that they wrote, that the left will take apart. I mean, when you have a Supreme Court justice that's willing to tell you, we're going to basically dismantle things that have been put into this place by our country, it ought to give every one of you pause. And it takes me directly to why this election is so important. Listen, there are going to be people walk across this stage and that main stage out there, and we're going to talk about a host of different issues. We're going to cover the watershed from now through Friday. You'll hear a little bit of everything. You'll hear people standing on the side of the street, discussing, dissecting, debating the issues of the day. There will be hair splitting like you can't imagine. They'll be talking about why other people ought to be our nominee. Hell, Donald Trump wasn't my first choice. I was my first choice. But that's why we have competition, Doc, right? I mean, that's why we have competition. competition, and I respect that competition. Come on, the Aggies can't win a national championship every year. Oh, wait, it's been since 1940, right? But my point is that we're going to hear all of these different things, and people are going to say, well, but if just this, I'd be more engaged. I'd be more into it. Here's what I want to ask you to do. I want you to keep the simplicity of the moment at hand. I want you to think about what's really at stake here. Donald Trump or Mike Pence may not agree with me 100% of the time. But having served you as governor for 14 years, not many of you agreed with me 100% of the time. But that was okay. We knew where we were going, and we knew what our final destination was. To create a place where people long to live, where freedom reigned, where our children had a better opportunity than what we had. That is what is at stake today. The simplicity of this moment could not be clearer. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, the Supreme Court. That is what is at hand, my friends. That is what we need to be focused on as a people. Because America cannot be great again if Hillary Clinton is going to decide that slot that Justice Scalia had, and maybe choose a couple of more Supreme Court appointees. That's what's at hand today. We're seeing signals about where this administration would go. And I get more and more comfortable every day that Donald Trump truly has that vision, that ability to put America back on a track that we can be so proud of. He gave us one of those signals last week. He chose an individual who I know to be his vice president. And I will tell you, as I've told a lot of people, I don't think he could have chosen a better individual to be his vice president. Let me share with you why I think that. Mike Pence is a steady hand. He may be one of the calmest individuals I ever dealt with in my years of being the governor. He is a committed evangelical Christian that every day will take that philosophy into the White House and into the work that he's going to be doing. And the thing that Donald Trump, I will suggest you needed more than anything in that White House was a steady hand that knows the legislative process, that has the knowledge to be able to carry the legislative agenda through that arcane process and navigate all of that, sir. I mean, Judge, you know how arcane and how difficult passing legislation can be. Mike Pence may be one of the best vice presidential choices. Oh, and did I add that he was a governor? That he had that executive experience of running a pretty good-sized state. He understands to his soul what is wrong with a Washington, D.C. that thinks they know how to fix everything and that it is their responsibility to fix everything. Mike Pence knows that the Department of Education does need to be shut down and that put back to the states. He knows that health care needs to be done at the state level. He knows that Constitution says that the federal government is supposed to do a few things, do those few things really well, and then everything else is left up to the states. That's where we're headed. What an extraordinary moment in time that we live in. Mr. Dickens could have been living right now. Because it truly is the best of times. It's the best of times in the world that we live in, with the progress that's being made in medicine, the things that we see that are occurring across the world that make us proud. And it's the worst of times. As our hearts break for cities like Baton Rouge, Dallas, bringing this country together and sharing with people that there can be a better tomorrow. I'm not sure there is a message that is more important in our country than tomorrow can be better than today. I'm no psychologist, but I do feel powerfully and strongly that people knowing that tomorrow can be better economically, that tomorrow can be better from a security standpoint, that a lot of what's going on in this country today can be addressed, and addressed in a good and thoughtful and a powerful way. But we have to be a country that recognizes and realizes to our soul where that comes from. And that we get down on our knees.
That's right.
Multiple times. And we ask God to bless this country again.
That's right.
Because America cannot be great again until God blesses America.
That's
again.
right. Yeah.
Listen, I want to wrap up by saying that, speaking of prayers, I want you to keep our governor in your prayers as he heals up. I know that he wishes he could be here, and Governor Patrick, thank you for leading the delegation, and we couldn't have it in more capable hands. And let me tell you how popular the state of Texas and the Texas delegation is. You know, notwithstanding our friends in the media who are here. Oh, you too, Herman. There are folks from all across the country that want to come just to get a little bit of that Texas love, just to share a little bit about what you all are all about. And we got two great friends here from Florida, Dr. Feingold, Barbara. Thank you all for both being here, and great supporters of the Texas delegation. How many other folks in the audience here that are from out of state? There you go. And listen, I'm not trying to embarrass you. It's not that. It wasn't a trick. But in all seriousness, we are blessed. We're blessed to live in a great state. A state that is, in fact, a reflection of what America can be, and I'm not bashful about it, should be. And you know what? The beauty of the 10th Amendment is that if you don't want to live in a state that's got a low tax burden, I mean, if you want to live in a place where they tax you every time you turn around, if you want to live in a state where, man, that regulatory burden is almost breaks your back down, where your public schools are kind of headed in the wrong direction because you got all those unions, and listen, you can live in California, man. It's okay. But we need to get back to that. Let people live where people want to live. I'll be the first to tell you, Texas doesn't get it perfect. We don't do everything right. We do a lot of things that are in line with the majority of the people of the state of Texas will. And that's what our founding fathers talked about. That was the reason that they created that 10th Amendment, because they realized there were going to be places where people didn't believe along these lines. They wanted to be over here, but that's okay. And whether it's social issues or whatever, allow people to go live where they want to live. But Washington, D.C. does not need to try to make us all look alike, act alike, and believe alike. One size fits all may work for gym socks, but it's not too great for democracy. We need to have that freedom, and we'll compete against each other. Governor Patrick, what you all are continuing to do in the legislature matters. And fighting the good fights matter. There were people back in the early 2000s when we started putting education reforms in place that said you're going to destroy our public schools. But we felt comfortable, we felt powerful about this issue of whether or not we needed to have incentive pay programs for teachers, whether or not we wanted to have charter school expansion by a substantial amount, whether we wanted to test our children at an early age to be able to intervene. And there were a lot of folks that pushed back on that hard. They said, if you'll just give more money to the system, you'll get better. And we didn't buy into that. In 2003, which I might add was the first time since Reconstruction that the Texas government was run by Republicans. In 2003, think about that. It wasn't back when George Bush got elected in 95. It wasn't in 99 when I showed up as lieutenant governor. It was until 2003 when we got a speaker, lieutenant governor, governor, and all the statewide bodies, and both of the houses, Senate and the House, that we became a Republican state. And that was the year. That was the year that we passed massive tort reform. We started making changes in our criminal justice system where Texas has become a leader in that. It was the year that we started putting these reforms into place for our public schools. In 2003, Texas was 27th in the nation in high school graduation rates. And that's about in the middle of the pack. And some people said, that's pretty good actually to be a big old state like you are, a diverse state like you are. You're not a per capita wealthy state. 27th is pretty good. But we didn't think so. And there were people in the legislature that was willing to go put these changes into place. And a decade later, Texas had the second highest high school graduation rates in America. If you were Hispanic or African American, you were living in the state that had the highest high school graduation rates in America. You want to send a message. You want to send a message to the minority community in this country that we care about you, we love you, we want your children to have a better future than you do. You graduate them from high school. You want to send a message to a minority community, we're not going to put your children in jail for these nonviolent drug offenses. We're going to allow a judge to be able to make those decisions. And those criminal justice reforms laid the nation. We shut down 3 prisons, saved $2 billion. That's what you've done, Governor. God bless you for that. Thank you for making Texas the place that people should be looking for leadership in the future. That's what this election is about. I feel incredibly comfortable that not only Donald Trump, Mike Pence, the team that Donald Trump will put together will have the experience, the makeup, will discard a lot of the old rules. Texas discarded a lot of the old rules. That's the reason we made the progress that we made. The same thing can happen for America. And Donald Trump is the individual, and Mike Pence is his partner, that truly will make America great again. Let's go let Texas lead that charge. Let's go put us in the vanguard. Let's go tell America that if you want to be great again, follow this path. God bless you. Thank you all for being here with us.
That was Governor Rick Perry, who spoke for 25 minutes.